Hi guys, today I'm going to talk quickly, hopefully, about the read alouds for Oak Meadow 2nd grade. And no matter if you have the newer version or the older version, they should have the same required readers and then the supplements that we used as a family for 2nd grade. Now we still have about 2 weeks left of 2nd grade, and so I already know what I'm doing for these last 2 weeks, but I wanted to go ahead and share all of the books and all of the stories that they tell you to read as the parent to the student, and what they are, and if you like them or if you don't like them, you can kind of get an idea if you want to supplement and if you need to. So I've got them all behind me here, and some of them are ours and some of them are Oak Meadows. So let's go through the Oak Meadow ones first, which I have to kind of... Okay, so when you get your, I use an older curriculum. So if you've watched my videos before, you know that these are 2000. I think all of these are 2000. Yeah, my curriculum is a 2000 version for 2nd grade. And so I think there are actually 2 versions that are later editions in this. I think a 2010 and then a 2015. So this is a 2000 version, so it's kind of a bit older. And yes, it's beat up. We are rough on our curriculum. I'm just letting you know right now. But you should be getting 2 big books and 2 little books. In the newer version, from the 2015 version where the covers are different, they might package them a little differently. I'm not sure. But these 2 little guys look just like the readers that your children are supposed to read, but they're not. And you can tell because it won't say reader. It says a collection and then the author. So you'll know that these are not ones that your kids specifically are supposed to read. I mean, they can if they want to, but they're not the readers. These are ones that you're supposed to read together at nighttime or during quiet time, and used to encourage your main lesson book work in your writing and everything. So let's go ahead and do these first, because it seems like you go through the big books before you do the little ones. And like I said, it might be set up differently in the newer curriculum, but it should be the exact same books. So the first one is Animal Stories, and my children loved this book. I read it to my kindergartner and my 2nd grader at night, and my kindergartner loved it too. So if you're worried about, oh no, I've got younger kids that might listen to this too, they'll probably love it too. But the cool thing is that you never know what they're gonna pull from it, right? Because kids hear stories differently than we do, and that's one of the important reasons of why they choose these kinds of stories, right? Because we might think, oh, this is such a boring story, but the kids might love it because it pulls to specific parts in their development that we've already passed. But anyway, okay, Animal Stories, and in it has tales. Tale of Jolly Robin, Patty Muskrat, Solomon Owl, Reddy Woodpecker, Chirpy the Cricket, and Old Dog Spot. And to this day, my son at night, he's 4, he will say, can we read Solomon Owl? Even though we are way, way, way past Solomon Owl. I'll be like, Mom, are you going to read a story tonight? You going to read Solomon Owl? Even though, like, we haven't read Solomon Owl in months. That's like, for some reason, that's stuck in his brain, Solomon Owl. And honestly, I think all my kids liked the Solomon Owl story. But they're broken down, so you have these different stories, and they're broken down in like little mini paragraphs, and you can usually get away with doing 1 or 2 of the paragraphs a night if you read 5 or 7 nights, or whenever you do your reading. It might be at quiet time. For us, it's always at nighttime. And then the next day is usually the work of reciting it and writing sentences about it or drawing a picture about it. But here, like also, like this is the Tale of Reddy Woodpecker, and it may look different if you have a newer version. But like, okay, so like here's the first page, and then see there's a back, and then it's the second one. And so it is split up where you can kind of look over it when you know you're going to start a new story, and you can kind of piece it together. Okay, I need to read this many tonight and this many the next night. So it's very short, compact pieces of information specifically for your comprehension and writing in 2nd grade. And if you've done Oak Meadow 1st grade, you know they did that with the fairy tales, where you're supposed to read a fairy tale throughout the week, and then they were needed to recite it back to you, and you connected it with the letter forming and things like that. It's the same with this. You're reading these stories, you're talking them back through with your children, and you're seeing what they remember about it, and then you're writing sentences about it and drawing pictures about it. And then, and this is a big one, and my poor copy is so torn up because someone stepped on it, The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle. And my kids loved this book, and it took a while. I think we actually read it way past when we should have been technically done with it in the curriculum. Sometimes it has you reading a lot. And what I did when I first got it, it's so beat up. When I first got it is I broke it down to like, okay, here's part 1, and I just wrote week 1, and I broke this out. So we needed to get done 15 chapters in 1 week. I think they give you a month to do this. And then part 2, all of part 2, and then half of part 3, and then the other half of part 3, all the way to part 5, and then half of part 5 and all of part 6. And that was how I was able to break it down into 4 weeks. But like I said, I don't think we did it in 4 weeks. I think we did it in like 5 or maybe even 6, because there were some nights where the kids were tired or we were out late, and I wasn't gonna sit there and read, oh, we gotta get our 6 chapters in, you know. My kids loved this book. This is a great book. The big thing I'll share with this one, my kindergartner, my 6-year-old, we got to the point, which is kind of early on in this book, where they talk about how the boy didn't know how to read or write because his dad couldn't send him to school. And this is another culture thing. And so she was very, very concerned. Why can't they send him to school? Why doesn't he know how to read and write? And it for some reason, that specific thing struck her more than like some of the other things. And I was just like, well, that's how it was back then. You know, you had to be able to afford to go to school. And a lot of kids, if you couldn't, you just had to try to learn on your own. Maybe someone in the community taught you and that sort of thing. Not everybody went to school every day. And she just like leaned over to me and gave me like a big hug, and she was like, thank you for teaching me to read and to write. And it was like the most sincere thing ever. And I wouldn't have even thought of that being like a big thing in the story, but for her, that was like a huge thing in this story. And it was a really, really sweet moment. And so sometimes we don't, especially if we're like reading through a story and we're like, oh my goodness, this is so boring, like my kids are never gonna like this. Like we get surprised because they pull things out that we don't, and things are important to them that aren't to us. And so it's really good to have those conversations and to share those moments where we can actually listen to what they're thinking and kind of watch their wheels turn as they navigate their surroundings. So, Voyages of Dr. Dolittle. It says you do it in a month, but we did it in over a month. Okay, the other 2 are Fables and Just So Stories. And I'll go with Fables first. Fables are super, super short, and they're towards the end of 2nd grade. That is where it'll say to read them. And they're just cute little blips about animals. The Boy Who Cried Wolf is like a page. The Sun and the Wind, The Larks in the Cornfield, A True Story About a Girl, which I think is a Cinderella story, 10 Fairies, The Tiger and the Jackal, The Talkative Tortoise. And these are the same as Dr. Dolittle, where they're older stories, and we might think this is kind of boring or this is weird, and your kid might ask you to read it 10 times to them because something in that story resonates with them. And so this is another good one like that. I think we got through this like in a week, because they would say, read another one, read another, and we would read like 2 or 3 a night. But there were a couple that my one daughter would say, can you read this one again? Can you read this specific one again? And we would talk about it. Because a lot of these fables, you know, they have a message. And then this one was my least favorite one. I'm not even joking. I don't even think I finished it. Just So Stories. And I know some people probably love this book. My husband, he listened to me read a couple of the stories one night with the kids, and he was like, these stories, I love the way that they're written, and I think they're so funny, and the point of view is hilarious. But for me, it was like hard for me to read. But I did read I read some of them. And so Just So Stories they're funny. how the camel got his hump, which you read that actually in another part. They really want to make sure that you do read that one for when you talk about camels in the Sahara Desert. I think it's lesson 30 or 29. They will want you to make sure that you read that one. How the rhinoceros got his skin. And they're just like little mythologies. How the leopard got his spots. And they all have like Zen in them and magic and let's see what else. How the zebra got his stripes. How the song of the kangaroo. And I think we read about half of it. And then I was just kind of like, and I just kind of stopped. I think we just went on to reading other things at night. And that concludes everything that Oak Meadow gives you to read to your child or with your child. Not a reader, but like a read aloud that your writing is going to be connecting with. And the only other little things are within the course books. They might give you a little story coinciding with like science in the specific week of that lesson. Other than that, these are the extra books. Now, we have been using a couple other books. Yes? Yeah, I told her she could. Yes. Okay, you're welcome. Now, when I bought my used curriculum, it came with these two books. We read this one, and we actually read it within a day. I originally thought I was going to break it apart because it's not super long, but there's a good amount of information on there. And we read it in one day, and I had the kids draw Coco, and we talked about it, and then I think we even watched some YouTube videos about Coco and that sort of thing, and they loved this book. My 6-year-old actually asked if she could read this again like at nighttime because she really loved this, and they still reference it. They'll still talk about Coco's kitten All Ball, which was the first one, and then I think the second one's name was Lipstick or something like that. They still talk about the kittens that Coco had, and this was like really, really good. So if you don't have this one and you're maybe wanting to add a little bit more animal stories, because kind of the theme for 2nd grade is animals, this is a great one. And then the other one that came with it was Men of the Mississippi, and we just got into this. And this book is dense. I mean, you can do a unit study on this book, which I think I'm going to do over the summer, because in Oak Meadow lesson 32, it just briefly mentions Men of the Mississippi is a good one for reptiles because it's a reptile week. And so you're just thinking, oh, okay, it's like a little book, like maybe like this that you can read. Oh, okay, it's just a little book that maybe I can read in one day like this. No, it's thick. I mean, look at this. And it's nice. Like, let me see here. There was one that I just thought, oh man, we could do a whole diagram about this and talk about it and really, oh, here we go. Like the egg cycle. It's just phenomenal of these little tortoises. These little tiny, it says like the egg nests, and then it goes and it talks about how they grow. And that's just one page. And so I'm thinking, like, how would I do this along with everything else for 1 week? And so I just thought, that's crazy. So I think we just did reptiles and the science story itself. And then I think I'm going to turn this into a unit study and maybe do it over the summer, because this book is awesome. And it's not like a 1 week book for us anyway. Maybe it is for you. With my used curriculum from another parent who used them. And I'm so appreciative of that. And then the other 3 books that we just read, the first one was, have you ever heard of like the Who Was series? They're readers, so they're not like super difficult if you can see. But I'm starting to collect those because my daughter's really starting to get excited about reading. And so we did Who Was Jesus? And this is a secular point of view of Jesus. This isn't a religious or a Christian point of view of Jesus. This is a secular, because it goes along with the lines of this book. And it just kind of says like who people who believe in him what they think or what they believe. And so it's really, really good to kind of get like an idea of who these figures are that people talk about. And so we did this one, and the kids really liked it, and it was really easy. It was a quick read. I read it out loud to all of my kids. These readers, I read out loud to all of my kids. We'd have like quiet reading time either at night or during the day when I read to all of them, and this was one of those. The other one was this one, or the other two were these. And these were gifts to me. They were gifted to me by my sister-in-law, who also homeschools, but she uses a completely different type of curriculum books, and her son is a grade above my daughter. And so she gave them to me last year, and she had 2 extras of these, and they were read alouds. If you're familiar with that term, read aloud to your kid, right? So this one is about a missionary woman named Betty Hockett, and I'm always about finding books with strong, compassionate women in them for my daughters. Likewise, strong, compassionate men for my sons, and vice versa, right? We should get a whole grouping of men and women protagonist stories, right? So I really was glad that she let me have this because this was just a story about a real woman and kind of the strength and the compassion that she had for specific people and what she did. And it was a really quick read. And then the second one, I had never heard of this, was The Kildee House. This is an older book, and it's kind of dense. If you can see here. So I wouldn't consider this a 2nd grade or maybe even 3rd grade reader unless your child loved reading. But I read this to all 3 of my older children too, my 3 oldest, and they really liked it. And it's a slow book, but it's about this old man who builds his house on the inside and on the side of this tree in the woods, and about how he lives with all of these creatures. He lives with skunks, and he has mice, and then he has deer and everything. And he has this one big glass window in his front, and he's kind of like a hermit. And I think the story is him kind of coming out of his shell from being a hermit and just his adventures with these animals. And so it fit in wonderfully with 2nd grade on a animal and nature level, but it was very much like a narrative book. It wasn't like a child's story, like kind of like the Oak Meadow stories were. This was very much like a full novel about a man living with little animals and in the woods, but it still went along with it all right. So that was pretty much, that's what we've been reading. We still got little readers and stuff from the library, and if we were studying something specific, we got something from the library, but these were the ones that I'm keeping in my 2nd grade box. And so when my kindergartner reaches 2nd grade again, these will be the ones I will pull out and we will read through again. Yeah, I'll do a more comprehensive review on 2nd grade when we are finished, because I want more time to really think about the holistic picture of it, and not just talk about, well, we read this and we did this, just about kind of the whole idea and what we thought about it. And we'll be done in about 2 weeks, so I'll do that then. So if you guys have any other books or things that you guys read aloud in 2nd grade, or that you would recommend for 2nd grade with the animal theme that 2nd grade is for Oak Meadow, let me know in the comments, because I will get them the next time we do 2nd grade. Or if you've read any of these, if you liked them, or if you loved just those stories and you just want to tell me how crazy I am that I didn't like it, that's cool too. But I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you later.